Hi, I'm Kay, and welcome to this episode of Off the Shelf Book Talk with Book Lovers. And before we get started, I want to do a shout out to Ginny Wegscheid, one of our loyal viewers, who actually wondered when we'd be back on the air. So, yay, Ginny! Thank you. And I know you're a great reader, so just keep reading, Ginny. So on that note, what have you been reading, Betsy?
I just finished The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes.
Oh, how was that?
It was different than other books I've read by her. So the book follows, is it like the 1800s, I think it's set in? It follows it's a bunch of women that go out and ride and deliver books to people. I can't remember where it is. Is it set in like Kentucky or is it further out west? But
I know I read.
I think it's further out west, but it's like they're going through mountains and it's and delivering books to people, and it's a full woman-run program because I can't remember who started it though.
Is it?
It's escaping me.
Is it true?
Yeah, it's based on a true story, and it's what happens to these women in the first year of this library delivery program that goes on, and all the different women that are involved in it. And as we've talked about on previous shows, I am not a huge Jojo Moyes fan. We're not going to talk about that series, not this episode. And I did like it. I did feel in parts that she went a little long in depth in explaining about things that she could have kind of glossed over. But I really enjoyed it. There's a crime that commits at the beginning that wraps around later, and it was very interesting because it talks a lot. It's a lot about it's a whole woman-run program, and they hire a lady to come in and do all of their bookkeeping and keep things kind of straightened out. And she's African American, but they can't let anybody know she's there. So she has to come in at night and work through everything. And so it's how they come through all these different trials and succeed and keep this library going. And it's how it impacts all of their lives. And I thought it was good. It didn't quite redeem her in my eyes, but I don't hate her as much as I did previously. So that's good news.
I have to say I've read a fair number of Jojo Moyes books, but I still go back to the first one, Maybe For You, which is hands down my favorite book, but I'm not nuts about most of her other stuff. I would be hard pressed to kind of even, I mean, I'd recommend her, but she isn't one of my top 10.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but there was a point where I got like 2/3 of the way through and I was like, this book could end now, and it's gonna keep going. And I don't know where it's going or why it's going on, but we'll see where it goes. But I was ready for it to stop, but I didn't want to, I was like, I'm 2/3 of the way through, I can't just stop now.
See, I would have just flashed forward and read the ending.
I don't know, because then I get confused, and then I have to go back and figure out what I missed.
Then you might as well just read the darn book.
Exactly, I'm a completionist.
Yes.
I don't like to not finish books. It's very hard for me to not finish
I've
them.
been known to dump a book when...
Yeah. The only ones I'm okay dumping are if they're audiobooks, and that's mostly because if you can't get into what you're listening to, it's like, nah, I can't do that. So
No.
Those I'll ditch pretty quick. But no, if it's an actual book, I'll sit and push through and hope it gets better.
Well, you're better than you're a better reader than I am.
I don't know about that. But what else have you been reading?
Well, I actually read a whole bunch of different series, but a new one I discovered, I was just telling her about when we were off the air, was the Tour series by Jean Granger. Mm-hmm. And it takes place in Ireland. And the reason I read it was because it's about a fellow who drives a bus for a tour company. And Elizabeth and my mom and my sister all went to Ireland for Betsy's senior...
Like 2007.
Gift. and they had a great bus driver, and you had a great group.
Brendan.
And you stayed at different hotels, you traveled around Ireland, And that's what this book is all about. And so, to a certain degree, I could relate to it. Although I wasn't there,
Yeah.
I'd heard plenty of stories, and so I just thought it was a great book. And
Yeah.
and it made me want to read the other books. And they all kind of evolve around tours. This fellow
Okay.
who, and I think it's book number 3. He becomes a hotel owner, and different things. But they're by Jean Granger, and she's done a lot of books about Ireland. And
It kind of reminds me of a book. I probably talked about it on one of the last shows, but since it's been 3 months, I'm going to repeat myself, I'm sure. It was a week in winter.
okay.
It's a Maeve Binchy or
Yes.
something like that. And this is a woman, I think it takes place in Scotland though. And she was living in America working, and she saved a lot of money. And she moved to the United States with an American, and then once they moved back there, he decided he was tired of her and left. And so she was still writing to the family saying that they were married and about this life she's having with him. And so she's saving all this money working at a boarding house. And then she decides to go back home, and she buys an estate there and is going to open it as a hotel. And so it follows her, and I think her nephew comes to help her, and it's all these people from this different walk of life that come to stay for this 1 week in the winter at this bed and breakfast. And it's how everybody's lives are and it's all these different people's stories, and how coming to stay at this place helps them. So it's like a couple it's like a mother, or it's a woman and her boyfriend's mom who hate each other, wind up having to go on this trip because he backs out. And so they wind up having to go, just the two of them, because he's so excited. His mother and his girlfriend are going to bond, and they hate each other. And so it's how their relationship is. And then there's a lady that worked at a school that goes there, and it's all these different people, and how going away for this weekend and discovering different things at this house affect their lives, which I thought was really good. And I listened to the audiobook for that one too, but it reminds me of the same kind of
Yep, I highly
thing you were talking
recommend
about.
the tour series by Jean Granger.
I wrote it down so I won't forget.
I also, during my lockdown, I reread the Charles Lennox series
Okay.
by Charles Finch, and there's 13 books, I think.
Okay.
There's
You're putting my reading to shame during this lockdown here. If you've read like 12 books and
it's me and one cat.
it's true.
So I mean, what can I say? And
I'm gonna come live with you, and Alex can just stay with Tom. He's working from home. It'll be fine.
I have to say, the Charles Lennox series is one of my very favorites by Charles Finch. He's a marvelous writer. I just love his character, Charles Lennox, and like 10 of the books are in chronological order, and then he did some pre-ones, 3 stories before he went into Parliament and things.
Okay.
But they take place in Victorian England, and there's lots of caste system, of different things, and he's just an elegant man, and it's more than just a murder in a body.
Okay.
You know about these people, you know what they do, you know how they feel about things, and he'll solve a murder, but the story doesn't end. It kind of ties all the other things together, and really a great book. Anne Perry also writes about Victorian England, and she has 2 series. Okay. But I think Charles Finch is just such an elegant writer. I just really like his stuff. So I would highly recommend him.
It's fun to have authors that you really go back to. Like I just started Sarah J. Maas's newest book, the Crescent City series. She's starting a new series, and it said it's for adults, but her other series that was supposed to be young adult, I think would be suited for adults. So I'm not sure what the difference is yet, but she's an author that when I read her books, I know I'm going to get my heart crushed, and I'm going to be taken on this crazy emotional wreck of a journey that's going to make me want to throw the book and love the book. And so it's one of those things where I'm trying to read it, but I'm like, I don't want to read it too fast because the next book that she's writing isn't coming out until like January. So it's like, I want to read it, but I don't. So
yeah, I know that feeling.
But I get so invested in. She's done the Throne of Glass series and the A Court of Thorn and Roses, and you just get, and especially with Throne of Glass, because I think there were like 9 books and they were like pretty good sized books that you were like, I don't want this last one to end because then I have to say goodbye to all these people that you've decided you really like over the last 9 books.
Yes.
And then you know they're going away and you're like, I don't want them to go away. I want them to stay here.
It's a good thing, though.
It is. Sometimes.
Well, it's better than like, I never want to see these people again. I never want to hear a word.
I've
about
had
them.
that with books where you've just like, I don't like any of you, and that was me with Gone Girl. I don't like any of you, and I just hope you all die, and you're fine.
That was me with Gone Girl too. I could not figure out why anyone liked that book.
Yeah.
There was not one single redeeming character in that whole book.
No. And see, and I felt I read Where the Crawdad Sings. Did you read that one?
No.
By Delilah Owens, and it's about a girl that lives in the marsh around this small town, and someone is murdered, and it's how she's implicated in it, and that's everything that goes on to her growing up. So it's one of those sweeping epics through her childhood into, and Nana, I think, really liked it, and everybody else did, and it just wasn't. I've decided I should just stop reading popular fiction because everybody tells me to like all these books and I just don't like them. So I'll just stick to my fantasy books and call it good.
The whole premise just never did much for me. It's similar to Educated. That's another book.
I have that one at home and I haven't started that one yet.
That was
either.
another one that I thought never. No.
Well, I'll read that one and then we can talk about it.
Yes, do that.
It's on my shelf. I think Mom gave it to me. I'm slowly trying to wheedle down the shelf, and I finally gotten into the bookcase that was with the shut doors. That's all the stuff I have to read, instead of stuff I keep buying. So maybe someday I'll get caught up.
Never.
Probably
Never.
not, but I can always hope that I'll
Yes.
get caught up. But
Another series that I read is Nero Wolfe. And Nero Wolfe was written by Rex Stout. There's 50-some books in the series.
Did you read all 50?
Read all 50. 54 or something. But Rex Stout passed on to the great library in the sky.
Okay.
And a fellow named Robert Goldsboro has been writing Nero Wolfe books.
Can you tell a difference
Well,
between the two authors?
they're he's pretty good.
Okay.
Actually, I tend not to really care for that because
Yeah.
that happened with the McNally series.
Okay.
You could tell when the voice changed. And I never felt the same.
I could tell that with James Patterson when he started co-writing, which I basically think other people write it and he just skims it. But I could tell the difference between chapter to chapter when they'd switch, or where he'd
Yeah.
jump in and try to fix things. But that's too bad. But he does a good job.
But I read several of Robert Goldsboro's books, and they were actually good.
Good.
You know, I really couldn't. I would say that Rick Stout has a bit more style,
Okay.
or elan, or there's just something a little more flourish.
Yes.
But it's not bad.
Okay.
So I enjoyed them, and I was able to get them at a discount on Amazon. So yeah, it was good. I read maybe a half a dozen of Robert Goldsboro's,
Okay.
and then I actually read some of Rick Stout's too.
Okay.
And that was fun.
Nice. I went back to a Mary Higgins Clark. I hadn't read anything by her in a while. I read Shadow of Your Smile, which is, so the premise of the book is there's this one woman and she's dying, and she wants to tell, and her sister was a nun and is up for canonizing to become a saint. I don't know why I tripled over that word, but I did. And is going to be questioned about becoming a saint, and she knows that her sister had a child, and she knows who the father of this child is, and that everything that he did should go to the children. But I'm not explaining this very well. And at the same time, there are the people that are his family that don't know about this other child, that don't want this child to know that they are the actual people who should have all the money from this trust fund. So it's everything about
Money.
money. Yes, it's all about money. It always is about money. And the woman who's the child in this is a doctor, and she's actually one of her patients is one of the miracles from this nun. So it's all connected and all plays into that. So I don't remember what kind of doctor, but she's a doctor, and so it's her and another doctor are trying to figure out, You know, is it a miracle? Is this possible? And meanwhile, you know, people are trying to knock off everybody else involved. So
Is it good?
It was really good. I mean, with Mary Higgins Clark, you're always going to get a great mystery. I mean,
I've never read a single one of hers.
wow. I really like her. I think, you know, she was consistent. She had a style. She sticks very well to it. All of her books are pretty quick reads. None of them are real, like, doorstops. They're all pretty easy to finish in a couple days. So I really enjoyed them, but I hadn't read anything by her in a long time, so I picked up a book of hers when she passed away.
Okay.
So there was like 3 or 4 weeks where it was like all these writers were dying, and I was like, please stop, we're not going to have anything good to read anymore if you all keep kicking the bucket. Which sounds callous, but don't kill the writers. We need them.
Yeah, we're self-serving. We'll
be out of the job if...
That's right. What would I do? I mean, if I didn't have a book to read, I'd just like sit there. I might have to like do laundry or something.
I know.
That would be bad.
I know. You have to sit and stare at your phone.
Yeah, well, there's that.
I did read, you talked about it on a previous episode, but I did read The Splendid and the Vile by
Oh, did you like
Eric
it?
Larson. I did really like it, yeah. It was one of those things where I didn't realize exactly how much happened in such a short time span. Like, I didn't realize when I read the book, even though I'm sure you told me about it at the episode and I just forgot, that book only covers his first year in office.
Yeah.
That only happened in a year, and it's like, wow.
I really liked it too because Eric Larson does historical.
It's like fictionalized. He writes like it's fiction, but it's nonfiction.
Right.
I'm sure there's a term for it, and we don't know
Yeah,
it.
historic novels. I forget there is a term, but
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank. But I really like his books, and what I found really interesting in this book was that I've read a lot about World War II. I know a fair amount about the Blitz, but this book is the first one that really tells you how it affected the people.
Yeah.
And Churchill was known for getting out of his office and walking through like the West End and talking to people, and he was truly a man of the people. And so the book covers a lot of that, and you really find out literally people would be up all night in a shelter. They'd get up the next day, they'd have their tea, and off to work they go. And they may not, it may take them 4 hours to get there, but they did.
I liked, the part I really liked is they had people throughout the United Kingdom who were keeping journals.
Yes, I didn't know
about their
that.
day-to-day life, and so they were readings during different things that were happening where it was what they thought about it, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting to hear someone else's point of view and to think about the fact that journal is still there and still surviving.
I thought it was
all these years
interesting
later.
too because it gives you the German point of view too, which is again interesting because it just adds one more voice to the book, and so you get a really kind of complete look at what's happening because the Germans are trying to bring. The Germans' goal is to bring England to their knees so that they can invade, and then they can have everybody under the Nazi boot and then take on Russia. And Göring keeps telling Hitler that his Air Force will crush them, and they do not.
And I didn't realize that, I can't remember who it was now. Was it Göring, or which one of them got in the helicopter or the plane and flew to England?
Oh, Hess.
Hess flew to England. I didn't know that he flew over there and was stuck.
Yes.
He wanted to end everything and didn't get to come back. So
No. Well, Rudolf Hess spent his life in Spandau prison.
Yeah.
Was one of, I think, 4 Nazi prisoners. Eventually, he was the only one. And he was Hitler's right-hand man, and he decided that he would negotiate some type of peace deal.
Yeah, but it involved like somebody from Denmark or some weird person, and he was trying to get a hold of and never did get a hold of anybody, but...
Well, and he crash landed, and he told them who he was, and nobody could quite believe it, and no, they locked him up faster than the speed of light. And nobody...
As they should, yes.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I just like the way that he gives such a whole view of what he's talking about, and it just seems to take. I mean, it has to take him forever to put these books together because he seems to go a while between when each one comes out.
I thought it was interesting too. The movie, The Darkest Hour. Mm-hmm. That is, Churchill coined that phrase to talk about when they truly didn't know if they were going to. I mean, this was really a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were points that they had no more planes to send up to take on.
Well, and then the guy that was making all the planes keeps quitting. He's like, he quit for the 19th time, and it's like, no, you're not quitting. Yes.
Beaverbrook, yeah.
He's like, I'm quitting. No, you're not. Okay,
well,
I won't
it
quit.
would be sort of an attention-getting thing that he wanted personal attention from Churchill. and then Churchill would pat him on the back and get things straightened out, and off they'd go. But Beaverbrook really is the one who made them competitive because he brought the assembly line to the airplane production and got parts and initially it was different parts of the assembly were handled by different departments and he brought it all under his control. He was the ultimate control freak. But it benefited them and it made the difference.
Yeah. Well, and it's all, the other parts I really like too is how they talk about like Churchill's daily schedule. Like he had to have his afternoon bath. He had to take a nap. And
he was always drinking.
He would dictate from the bathtub.
And these poor women who were his secretaries, they always had to avert their eyes because he thought nothing of, I mean, he actually paraded around in front of Roosevelt
naked,
smoking a cigar.
Naked.
Yep. Naked.
I know. So, and then like when they showed like the different costs of like when people would come and how much wine would cost and the different stuff and how even what, like the government would pay wasn't even enough to cover the cost. It's just kind of amazing.
He had a heavy hand, I think.
And how he just kind of took over people's houses for weekend getaways.
Yes.
It was interesting.
Well,
Things you don't think about.
Yeah, during the Blitz, because he couldn't be at though I can't think of the name of the place he normally
Downing
went.
Street?
Nope. The one in the country. And then he picked another one. He would go when that one was being bombed.
I can't remember.
Yeah, but I thought it was a remarkably good book because it really gave you kind of an intimate look.
Yeah, I agree. I really just really enjoy all of his books. And I'm sure we've talked about that many, many times before, but we'll keep talking about it because we like him so much.
Well, I just think that it's great to read a book that's enjoyable but teaches you something.
Yeah.
And his books are that way. I mean, I just think they're really interesting.
They're not. You can't say they're fun because they're never really about good topics.
No, they're always sort of dark.
Yeah.
But they give you a lot of insight, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think fans of his would agree. So yeah, it was good. I'm glad you read it.
I did. Well, I took your copy from the library since you had both a library copy and a digital copy.
And you took it right when COVID hit, didn't you?
I did.
You had it for like 5 months.
Well, I was supposed to take it back, and then they stopped taking books, so I got like an extra week to finish it. And then I was like, no, I actually have to take this. This has to go back. But
yeah, because it had a list. It
did, and I mean, I'd sat in quarantine for a while, I'm sure, but I was like, I'd prefer the library book to sit at the library than to sit in my house where it might get misplaced or donated.
Yeah, well, it can happen.
It can, and I have that a lot where I'm like, I know I have this book, and I'm like, well, I must not have it anymore. It didn't make the cut with the last move, but that happens to me a lot. Anything else you've been reading?
I also took on reading a bunch of the Spencer books by Robert B. Parker.
Okay.
And again, Parker's dead, but they've been, Ace Atkins, another mystery writer, is taken on writing. Okay. And I have to say, his books are dead on. I mean, you would not know Parker's not writing them. But I actually stuck with the Parker books because I have a stack of those. Yeah. And they're kind of in chronological order and stuff. And I was reading some of the early ones, which I have not read in a very long time. And so that was fun. And Spencer and how he kind of met Hawk and his relationship with Susan and in the later book, Susan has a doctorate and has her own psychiatric practice.
Okay.
Psychological practice. She's not a psychiatrist,
Psychologist.
And in this book, she's a school counselor.
Oh, okay.
So she hasn't gone to Harvard yet. She hasn't done all these things and stuff. And so they were good. And Parker's a good storyteller.
Good.
You know, I think that's the key.
He's on my list to read. I haven't read him yet.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed him because I like he's sort of literary. You know, he's well read but he was a boxer, so he's kind of the physical and the mental, and it's an interesting. He's an interesting guy.
Well, good.
You know, he's sort of, and he hangs out with thugs. and he's killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
In fact, I had to figure out how many people he's actually killed.
There's a couple. You have a couple series like that you wonder how many people.
But I do
killed.
like Parker, and so he,
Okay.
I recommend him.
Well, good. On that note, we've reached our time for the week, so we are going to wrap it up. And if you have anything you think we've read or enjoyed anything you've read with your lockdown quarantine, let us know. You can reach out to us on Facebook or contact us by email at offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.